You were going to say something.
I can tell you that, this administration, I think, certainly values journalists wherever you are in the world. We value your coverage. We value the questions that you ask us here at the briefing room, whether it's in this briefing room or other briefing rooms across the administration. I don't know if you have a question, but happy to take it.
Yesterday, the Taliban were celebrating their 3 years anniversary of their takeover in Afghanistan. And they were flying U.S.-made helicopters. They were driving U.S. vehicles, the military vehicles. I had emailed this office, Pentagon, right before the U.S. withdrawal as well, that what's going to happen. So at least, can the U.S. now at least disable these helicopters, these big things, or no, they have not thought about it?
So this isn't like
the military hardware that they were displaying yesterday at the Bagram Air Base?
Okay. So, look, I don't have a comment on the types of parades that, the Taliban is doing right now. But, as the department, as we come up on, closer to an anniversary, I would say that we are certainly grateful for all those that have served, for their bravery, for their selflessness, for their compassion every single day that they showed while they were in Afghanistan. And we certainly honor those that came back and those that made the ultimate sacrifice, but I just don't have a comment to offer on the Taliban.
Thank you. Just last question. Several senior Pakistani military officials has been arrested in the last couple of days, including a spy master, the general, and they were arrested on corruption charges. Senior politicians, Javed Hashmi, and Georgetown graduates, again a senior politician, Mushahid Hussain, they all complain from the U.S. that the U.S. only contacts the Pakistani military more directly instead of the people-to-people relationship instead of the diplomatic. Do you guys ever feel that? Have anybody ever told you that the people of Pakistan, who many of them support democracy as well, but when their senior politicians say that the U.S. military keeps more focus on the Pakistani military than the diplomatic relation, is that anything of concern to you or not?
So I think two separate questions here. In terms of the reports that you're cited, aware of those reports regarding the arrest, I just don't have anything for you on that. That's really a Pakistani internal matter for them to speak to. As you know, the U.S. values our partnership with Pakistan and engage with both military and civilian leaders based on mutual interests. And we remain committed to working with Pakistan to support regional stability and our mutual goals. And I'll just have to leave it at that. Konstantin.
Thanks. Just a quick update on JLOTS, if you don't mind. Has the remaining aid that was in Cyprus been finally delivered, and are there any JLOTS components or personnel still in the region?
Hang on. I have an update. Give me a sec. Okay. Okay, it's not working. So we're just going to wing it. No, just kidding. Okay, so in terms of JLOTS, there is approximately, I got it, hold on. There's approximately 6 million pounds of aid left on the Cape Trinity. That has not been fully distributed into Gaza yet. We're still working that through. In terms of redeployment, and this is what I wanted to make sure that I had for you. 235 soldiers returned to Joint Base Langley Eustis earlier this month. 209 sailors returned to Naval Air Station North Island last week. And an additional approximately 100 will be returning in the coming days. We expect all personnel and equipment to be coming home by mid-September, as soon as that aid is distributed. And as you know, we are committed to making sure that that aid does get distributed into the people of Gaza, but that is still ongoing.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, in the back.
Thank you, Sabrina. Two questions. First one, do you have any new information about the possible of Iranian attack? I mean, if they move some of their assets to prepare for that attack? Because we heard that last days that we don't have anything about that. So do you have any new information about that?
Yeah, I don't have anything to provide. We certainly wouldn't get into intel assessments. We remain postured, of course, to protect our forces and to come to the self-defense of Israel. But I just don't have anything to share on any type of attack. And as I read out in the top, it's something that I know there's keen interest in. We're going to continue to monitor what's going on in the region, but I just don't have more to share or a crystal ball to predict the who, what, when, where, and how right now.
My second question, do you still haven't seen any signs that Hezbollah wants to start a new war? And do you expect that they would observe a 6-week ceasefire, let's say if the deal will done in Doha and the Houthis too?
Well, look, I think a ceasefire deal is good for everyone. That's something that the president has been pushing, and you saw him outline that earlier this year, some of the framework component pieces. Those talks are ongoing. It's an important step to securing the release of hostages, some of which are American citizens. We want to see them come home. We do think a ceasefire would certainly de-escalate tensions in the region, and that's ultimately what we want to see. Mike, did you have a question?
I do.
Sure.
The Ukraine's cross-border operation into the Kursk region was the most significant mission really since the start of the war. This was apparently done without the knowledge of their largest patron, the United States. Now, why shouldn't that be considered an intelligence failure in the part of this administration, this building, and the rest of the IC?
Well, Mike, I'd push back on that a bit. I think some of the things that the Ukrainians demonstrated earlier on in the war is the ability to hold Kyiv, and then subsequently Kharkiv, Kherson. They were able to hold major cities that I think back then you were here in this briefing room as well, and speculating on what the Ukrainians would and wouldn't be able to hold. In terms of, is this an intelligence failure? No.
That the United States did not know that this happened until
we were
after
not.
the fact.
Yep, we were not made aware of this operation. That doesn't mean that it's an intelligence failure. What I would tell you is that we are working with the Ukrainians to better understand their objectives, and I'm not going to go beyond what we had in that readout.
They didn't let anyone in the administration know. Does that indicate that there's a lack of trust between Kiev and Washington?
No, I don't think so, Mike. I would actually push back on that. We have a very good relationship with our Ukrainian counterparts. The secretary, on an almost weekly basis, is speaking to his Ukrainian counterpart, and it's not just the secretary; it's the Secretary of State. It's other administration officials across this administration, including the president. There is deep trust there, and there has to be deep trust. We're on our 62nd presidential drawdown package. We are pouring millions upon billions of dollars into Ukraine to make sure that they have what they need on the battlefield. We are assisting them with their capabilities. We're training their pilots. We're training their infantry to be better, to improve their skills. There's absolutely trust there. As we said, we didn't know about this one operation. That doesn't mean that we're not engaged on other things. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Oh, boy. Dan, and I'll take two more, and then that's it.
To the Middle East, are there indications of an increased threat from the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria in recent days? Is there any kind of change in the posture of those adversaries? And then also, given the threat that's kind of continuous to those U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq that you were talking about earlier, what is the rationale for keeping U.S. troops in Syria, for example, if ISIS is severely degraded and mostly defeated?
So on your first question, so I'm not going to speak to any force posture changes. I'm not aware of any heightened levels in the recent days, but I'd refer you to CENTCOM. In terms of the rationale of keeping forces within Syria and Iraq, we are there to ensure the defeat of ISIS. That by no means that ISIS has completely evaporated. They still remain a threat. You might remember from this podium just a few weeks ago, I was asked about a concert that was canceled because of an ISIS threat. So ISIS remains a very real threat in the region and around the world. Were they the threat that they were 2014, 2016, when our forces were at the height of engaging them and, they were outside of Baghdad? No, that threat has evolved, and they have, changed their tactics and methods and become degraded because of the global coalition that we've built. But ISIS still remains a threat, and I don't think we're turning a blind eye to that in any way. Okay, two more. One, and then Charlie gets the last one.
Colleague's question about ISIS. So President Biden repeatedly said that Over the Horizon is an effective program to monitor or to control what's going on in the region like Pakistan and Afghanistan. What is the Pentagon's assessment on that? Is that effective? How does it work? And also, does the United States still control Afghanistan's airspace? Because the Taliban's defense ministry said a couple of days ago that we, the Taliban, don't have any control on our airspace in Afghanistan. And they claim that some drones are flying over different cities of Afghanistan, like Kandahar, Jalalabad, and some other areas. Who controls that? The Pentagon?
Well, that seems like a them problem, not an us problem. In terms of are over the horizon capabilities effective? Yes, they are. Charlie.
Yes. Thank you, Sabrina. I'm just curious, going back to Ukraine and Russia. I know the United States has cautioned Ukrainians of using certain weapons that might penetrate deep inside Russia. Now that the line of scrimmage has moved forward, are there restrictions on what kind of weapons can be used on Russian soil?
Thanks, Charlie, for the question. Nothing has changed in terms of our policy. So the policy that we set out from the beginning and allowing those counterfire measures to take place around that Sumy area, nothing's changed on that. Nothing has changed on our long range fires policy as well. We still believe that with the coalition that we've built through the UDCG, that we are providing the Ukrainians what they need on the battlefield to be successful in that northeast area region and in the south. And we believe that they have the capabilities to be successful with what we've given them.
But the U.S. policy was never considering that weapons like these might be used inside Russia.
So Charlie, what I would tell you on that is, once again, on the Kursk incursion, we're still working to get more from the Ukrainians on their objectives. So I don't have more to share on that. In terms of like what you were saying on, like, we've never seen this, you have to remember that, and to Tara's question at the beginning of the war, what we were providing were like javelins and stingers. What we're providing them today looks very, very different from that PDAs 1 through 20, possibly. So you have to remember that every time that the battlefield has changed and adapted, whether it be terrain or capabilities, we have adapted as well. So we're not ruling anything out right now, but if as the battlefield dynamics change, we always reserve the right to work with the Ukrainians on what they need. And right now you're seeing them, they have these F-16s that are there. They've showcased that. That was a capability that was not something that they needed at the very beginning of the war. But now they need that. So I'm going to leave it at that. I will take one more question and then we're wrapping.
Sabrina, in the past 3 years, U.S. forces have pulled out of Afghanistan. The Taliban's taken over. Putin launched a major invasion of Ukraine. Iran carried out a major attack on Israel. There was the October 7th massacre. U.S. Navy's been engaged for months in a war again in Yemen against the Houthis. U.S. forces have pulled out of bases in Africa. Has the Pentagon lost the ability to deter?
No, I would actually say quite the opposite. You mentioned many examples there, but what I would tell you is the United States is not in a long, protracted war. What you're seeing the United States do, whether it be in the Red Sea and the BAM, we're protecting commercial shipping. What you're seeing us do in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Central Command area of responsibility is we're protecting our forces and we're coming to the self-defense of Israel. So happy to have a longer conversation about this, but our goal right there, I think you have to separate defeat versus what our intentions are. And our intentions are to allow commercial shipping, to allow let me just take this one, Lucas, and finish this up. We have to continue to allow commercial shipping through that Red Sea passage. It's important. It's something that the president set out from the very beginning, and the secretary built a coalition through Operation Prosperity Guardian of like-minded nations coming together to protect interests from all over the world sailing through that corridor. So we remain committed to that objective, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you, Lucas. Much appreciated.